We're back again for another interesting little look into the world of fitness and information and people that think things are just opinions. So, with that being said, recently I found some information that was talking about something that was really interesting. And more is and longer is not always better. And unfortunately, in our Western mindset, and for people like I used to be a long time ago, of thinking that, well, if something is good, then when you add more, that must equate to being better. And especially when it comes to health and fitness and exercising, muscle hypertrophy, and things like that, that more is always better. But, say for example, in the case of progressive overload, doing more information and more research on progressive overload, and what we're finding is that you can increase your overload or the load in which you're using to train for hypertrophy by either increasing the number of sets and reps or adding more weight or a combination of the two. Specifically, when we're looking at adding weight, we're looking at small increments of maybe 2.5 to 5% of your, the weight that you're lifting, and add that on every 1 to 2 weeks to keep adding additional weight and stress, which will increase your volume, time under tension, activate more muscle fibers, and so the whole thing is geared towards more micro muscle tears, rebuilding of muscle fibers, and gaining more muscle growth. So with that being said, there are dangers with thinking that more is better. Well, if I put, a couple of 5-pound plates and I add that weight and I'm going to get a little bit of hypertrophy, then, I'll put a 10-pound plate. I'll put a couple of 25s on there. Well, hell, let's just put additional two 45-pound plates on top of that, and let's just go for the gold, go for the gusto. And why should I do less and accept less when it comes to hypertrophy when I can just jump in with the big dogs and make some fantastic gains? That's kind of the mentality that a lot of people have with health and fitness, but they don't realize that by adding such large increments of weight, you're increasing the chance and risk of injury. And, I did some videos and I showed you, just all you have to do is Google like pec tear or double bicep tears, or, the one video shows the guy and he's doing the preacher curl and he's doing what? It's like two 45-pound plates and the bar, which you don't know if it's a 35-pound bar or 45-pound bar, but he's doing the preacher curl and he goes up and then he goes down, and all of a sudden his biceps detach from here, both of them. It's like blip, blip, and it's like, oh, the guy's freaking out. So there needs to be some considerations when we're talking about progressive overload and safety and so on and so forth. So when I posted the information, I saw this trend on over 40 and over 50 fitness pages. I'm 56, going to be 57 this year, pretty soon. I'm amazed. But that we see people that are doing resistance exercises and they're saying, oh, well, I go for quality, not quantity, or I do quality, not quantity, as for older people. And it ends up, I was seeing this trend of where people were taking more and more time to complete a repetition. And so the duration of doing that repetition, was sometimes 10, 15 seconds. And it's like, gee whiz, how long are we going to, do the repetition? What is the max we can do? And that was a question that I had. And so I started doing some keyword searching and stuff. And I found a very interesting study that looked at that very topic. And it talks about how longer is not always better, and that there was, their study that was done, and it kind of mirrors along with junk volume. So there are studies that have been done that show that, between 20 and 30 sets, anything more than 30 sets per muscle group is going to be considered junk volume. Of course, there's other variables that come into play in regards to the experience of the lifter, whether they're new, a novice, intermediate, advanced, things of that nature. They're able to recovery to recover from, their workout, nutrition, all of those variables. But, anything over 30 sets is kind of like the max, and you start getting into junk volume. In other words, more than 30 sets per week, you're not going to get a return on investment by doing more and more sets. It's a work in futility, and you're not going to see the return in regards to hypertrophy. And the same thing, longer is not better. And this study that we looked at, or that I ended up finding, talks about, let's see, that's not it. Or is that it? Nope, that's not it. Well, anyway, okay, here's the post. But so I go into this study, and it talks about, and it says, hey, well, in regards to the duration of a repetition, for hypertrophy, for the best option for hypertrophy comes up to 4 to 8 seconds. And then what they found through this study, they found out that if you hit 10 seconds or more with a repetition, then really it doesn't do any additional good. It's kind of like the longer you do the repetition after 8 seconds doesn't give you a return and give you more hypertrophy. So it was a really interesting study, and it's interesting because I posted a picture of this on a number of things. It says longer is not always better, and then of course it references the training loads and so on and so forth, and they found that from 0.5 to 8 seconds of concentric muscular failure was pretty much beneficial. But when you started getting down to the very slow durations used to stimulate hypertrophy, however very slow, around 10 seconds should be avoided. And considering the evidence on the topic, and then it talks about that. So, and there's the link right there. So after going over this information, reading it, and it is not just that there. The study was a meta-analysis of like a bunch of other studies, another meta-analysis. In other words, they took a bunch of tests that other researchers did and combined them together. And even the meta-analysis of other researchers that took a lot of other tests and combined all these together within, the things that they were looking for hypertrophy, different strategies for muscle growth, and so on and so forth. And they came to the conclusion on a bunch of different items. So this wasn't just the only item that was discussed on this paper. But this one is what I found because, I'm retired now, and so I'm doing more studying and research on published papers on hypertrophy and exercise and recovery and so on and so forth. So I've got a lot of interesting, comments and replies to that. Hey, this is great. People are saying, hey, it's great to see posts that includes words of studies show actually backed up. It's one thing to have bro science and then say, well, this is what it is, and this is how you should do it. But then there's no reference studies. There's no actual tests that have been done, repeatable tests. It's kind of like, 2 + 2 is 4, but we don't have there's no test to verify that, somebody is saying 2 + 2 is 5. We're assuming it's 5, but there's nothing to show us that if that's really the answer or not. Kind of see what I'm getting at. So these tests on this really come to the point of where we can narrow down and filter out all the gray area, and we can filter out the bro science from fact and repeatable testing strategies that can help with muscle hypertrophy. So, but then I get some kind of interesting questions. So, there's one that ends up that an individual on another page that I posted this on said, that's, it's not talking about quasi, what did he say? Quasi isometric exercises. And it's like, there's two totally different topics. This topic is on resistance weight training. In other words, you're actively lifting weights, whereas isometric training is using, your body weight, your body's muscles to push against itself and, activate muscle fibers. And yeah, you can do that as an exercise. You can do, wall sits and planks and things like that. You can hold your bicep down, from a table, and you can activate the muscle fibers in your arms or whatever you end up doing. A lot of different body weight exercises, I guess you could say, or body resistance exercises using the body's own muscles. But you are limited to the amount of hypertrophy with isometric exercises because you can only squeeze so much, okay? You come to a point of diminishing returns because you can't add any more progressive overload as you can with resistance weight training. By adding another 5 or 10 pounds to the mix and so on and so forth. So it was really interesting when that person is like, well, obviously, he's kind of like, you don't know about isometric exercise. And it's like, well, yeah, I do. But when we're talking about hypertrophy, if isometric exercise was such a huge game changer when it came to muscle hypertrophy, we would be seeing fitness influencers, we'd be seeing amateur and professional bodybuilders ditching the weights and progressive overload in sets and reps and the whole 9 yards, and they would be doing isometric exercises. But we don't see that. So, you're going, and then I actually referenced an article that was written that talked about isometric exercises. Weight training that emphasizes movement, strength, size, and neurological strength and technique, but it ends up, what is it? Is weightlifting better than isometrics? Could isometrics possibly be better than weight training? On both counts, no. Okay, so it's you can sit and do a wall squat and you can do that for so many minutes, but you're going to get less muscle hypertrophy doing isometrics than you will with weight training. It's just the way it is. So, it's kind of funny. It's, this person is trying to get a gotcha moment. Oh, well, you don't know about isometric exercises. And it's like, well, yeah, I do. In regards to hypertrophy, resistance weight training is way better than isometric exercises because you're limited by what you can do with your own body squeezing thing. Squeeze your body, and that could go south really quick. So anyway, there is this other guy that I just thought it was kind of funny. So other people left these comments, and this one guy ends up saying, let me show you. I thought it was kind of funny. So he says, that's just another opinion. And it's like, that's just another opinion. That's just a published study by researchers who had test subjects and referenced other tests done by researchers and meta-analysis of multiple tests that were, and so I kind of broke it down Barney Basic for this guy. And I said, well, that's your opinion. And by the way, an opinion is a view or a judgment on something that isn't necessarily based on fact or knowledge. So, your opinion, everybody can have their opinion, just like your belly button, okay? Everybody has a belly button, and it can be all different shapes and sizes and whatever, but, everybody has their own. But it doesn't mean that, what you're saying holds any validity if there's no knowledge or facts based on those things. So it was kind of interesting. I said, this is totally different than this study that I got this information from. So talking about the rep duration and how longer isn't always better after 10 seconds. There's no more return on investment, which looked at the topic of different resistance strategies to maximize hypertrophy. They used 14 different meta-analyses that comprised 178 different studies of testing of over 4,784 subjects. And the conclusions reached based on facts, repeatable results for different researchers on what strategies worked, and not opinion. So there's that. Yeah, it's it's interesting how people's minds think. And then, there's other things where I posted about hypertrophy and things, and people are just, they're stuck in that old bro science thing. Let's see, we got some comments here. It says, hey brother, not exercise related, but how are the churches around there? For those of you who don't, yeah, it's not related at all to the topic. But for those of you who don't know, my wife and I, we sold everything in the United States and we came and retired in Korea. So we're living overseas, retired early. So I do the health and fitness and exercise thing to give me the longest and best possible chance of longevity and enjoying my golden years. As far as churches, I live close to a military base, and so I go to a military base gym. There are some congregations and churches that have services there. There's a few off posts that I've seen, but COVID really knocked down, the years of COVID really put a lot of churches out of commission. So, there's way less than what I saw when I was here last time, when we visited, I don't know, it was 7 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever it was, when we came and visited the wife's family and stuff. Just a huge, huge difference between the amount of churches. So, yeah. But yeah, other than that, again, it's really interesting to see when we're talking about health and fitness and we're talking about hypertrophy and we're talking about ways to lessen the learning curve to build more muscle or get better results and the different strategies that we can incorporate to do that. But again, I have a confession to make that, I used to believe in a lot of bro science. Now, if you don't know what bro science is, it's kind of like, information that people came up with, some ideas or theories. And again, theories are not facts. It's just ideas of what people think. It's kind of like opinions. They're not verified facts. It's just what people think that they are. And then that gets passed off as knowledge or truth. And then when we run into actual studies and publications and peer-reviewed articles and studies like on PubMed and papers and things done by universities and their physiology departments and nutrition departments and so on and so forth, how some of those things is not true, and we need to confront those myths because would you rather be operating off of truth and facts and things that have been tested with repeatable results showing that it is an established fact? Or would you rather just go off of something that is bro science, that is basically some opinion that is not necessarily true, but is considered as fact over time, just because it's been around a long time? In regards to your own fitness journey, my fitness journey of gaining more muscle, trying to get in better shape as I age, to stave off sarcopenia and heart disease and all that stuff there, I really want to lessen the learning curve. And so really that's what it comes into play. By using the bro science, I'm aiming for a target, but I'm not precise and accurate in hitting the mark of what I want to do. So I can be off by, a few degrees, or I can be off by, miles. And so by looking at the studies and the research and the tests and the conclusions that they come up with, I can better hone and get that precision and accuracy when it comes to attaining my goals, whether it's endurance, strength, power, hypertrophy, a combination of those things, bulking, cutting, whatever it is, maintaining a physique that once I get to that level, I can maintain that for the long run in a healthy manner in regards to longevity. We're not talking about fad diets or, doing steroids or anything like that, because I think that's counterproductive to health and longevity. So, yeah, it's just kind of interesting on what we end up seeing with health and exercise and how limiting we are. And I find this especially problematic with older fitness people, because older fitness, and I'm older. I'm going to be 57 here in what is August, September, October. In 2 months, I'm going to be 57. Holy crow! That's just hard to believe right there. But or what were we talking about? Yeah, but just coming to a place of like hanging on to this stuff that is counterproductive. And we think that because we were involved in fitness and exercise way back in the 70s or the 80s or, whatever it is. And then the information we had at that time, we're running with that and saying, well, that is truth. That is absolute truth. And I don't need to test it. Don't need to look at any studies. And then some old people will actually take offense because of something that they believed was true. There's this cognizance, this dissonance, to where it's almost as if the thing that they believe has become part of their identity. And so when you confront the wrong information, the false or misleading information that they've been believing as true or as a fact for decades, they take personal offense to that, and then they lash out, and you don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, there's science is ever expanding, it's ever learning. We're learning more and more as we continue on through time and study different subjects. And there has been stuff that has been disproven that we used to consider as fact, and it's not. So why are we operating in falsehood? Why are we operating in something that's not true? And so, like, for example, probably one of the biggest thing is fat spot reduction. Fat spot reduction, how many times have you seen the advertisements where it says, oh, get rid of stubborn belly fat in 30 days or 60 days or whatever, exercises to get ripped abs, and it's like, you have abs. Everybody has abs because that's part of your core. And, even if you're not exercising, you still have some abs. You can feel them in there. There might be a lot of insulation on top of them, but you have abs. So really, it's not about the ab exercises and implying or saying that it takes 60 or 30 days to, get those six-pack abs, but they don't mention anything about nutrition is really, and you can't do spot reduction. When we talk about fat loss, and I think part of the problem is that with fat loss, it's cumulative. It starts in the entire body, but the first place that you'll see fat loss is usually in your face, usually in the neck after that, and then you'll start seeing some other areas experiencing fat loss. The last place that you'll usually see fat loss is the stomach, love handles, and of course, the jiggly butt at times. So excuse me for that. And that's the hardest place. The love handles are the last to go. And I think that's when people started saying, okay, well, I lost all this other fat, so I'm going to start doing these exercises for my abs. And so then I started, the nutrition and the exercise, and they came away with this idea that, oh, well, this is what I did, and this is how the fat started going away. Really, that's not how it went away. It went away because the natural progression of fat loss goes from the top down, or actually from the top down to the middle of your body. And eventually you had enough of a calorie deficit to where you lost that body fat. It's not that you targeted and said, well, I'm fat and I'm obese and I want six-pack abs, and so I'm going to reduce the fat around my stomach, but I want to keep the fat on my arms and shoulders and legs, but I'm going to have the six-pack abs. That's impossible. There's no way on God's green earth that you can do that without medical intervention, ab sculpting. I just found that out. Ab sculpting, they can actually do liposuction and give you sculpted abs by sculpting out the fat in your stomach. Good Lord, that just sounds painful. But you can leave the rest of the fat on your body in other places. You could leave that alone, so it's just, that's absolutely insane. But some people have more money than sense. So that myth has been disproven. Another myth has been the anabolic window. So, this has been purported as saying, well, you can only eat, 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal, 3 meals a day. That means your body can only digest 90 grams of protein in a day. This actually came out from a study, but people didn't read the entire study. So all they came away with was that, the 30 grams of protein and something or other, and a bunch of other medical words. And then it's, and so they ran with that partial information. That misinformation they came up with is that, oh, your body can only process, 30 grams of protein at a time. And so you're limited to 90 grams of protein a day. That has been disproven by studies. And if you think about it, and I've actually had people tell me that your body, if you eat more than 30 grams of protein in a meal and you have 3 meals a day, you get to that 90 grams, and then your body somehow a float switch flips, and then your body just craps and pisses out the rest of the protein. That's not how the human body works. I swear to God, it's not. So, yeah, we need to be smart about this stuff, because if your body did have a switch that limited to 90 grams of protein, then how would people like me, I'm 255 pounds, I'm taking in 200 to 250 grams of protein a day. That's what I'm shooting for as I'm doing this lean bulk. How do professional bodybuilders, how do amateur and natural bodybuilders, besides the ones doing steroids, how do these big boys who have way more muscle mass, how can they gain that much muscle if they can't ingest 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight? It would be impossible. It would be impossible for them to maintain their body weight if there was a limit of only 90 grams. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. That's been disproven a long time ago, many times, but yet here we are. We still see social media, and we see the old folks and we see the young folks taking the old information, that bro science, and bringing it with them into 2023, and it's going to go into 2024, and we're going to get these crazy ads. Train for your body type. That's another one. That if you're an endomorph, ectomorph, or mesomorph, you need to train for your specific body type. That's bollocks. That's BS. That's a total lie, because you're telling me that there are certain exercises that are only meant for obese people, and that there's only exercises for people that are medium build, and that there's only exercises for people who are skinny. That's absolutely untrue. When you see like V-Shred and other programs that offer, routines for your body type, it was interesting, because a guy I was chatting with, he had got a online routine for his body type, but they sent him the wrong routine. So he said, "Hey, look, here's my order." He contacted the company. I can't remember the company name. I want to say it was V-Shred, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was still, there's a number of them that do this. So he said, "Hey, here's my order. Here's my confirmation number. I ordered this for my body type, but you sent me the wrong one." And so they sent him the one for his body type, and he was obese. So they sent him like the ectomorph one, if I'm not mistaken. But it doesn't matter. It was the exact same routine. It was the same number of bench presses, same number of back exercises, same number of bicep and tricep and leg and squats and calf raises and all of that stuff. The exact same routine, the exact same number of sets and reps. So when they say, "Oh, well, you need a specific workout routine for your own body type," know that is a lie, and it's not true, because it kind of marries along with this thought that happened that women need to train different than men. No, because bench press is a bench press. There is no women's bench press. There is no women's bicep curl. There is no women's front lat pull down and men's front lat pull down. Exercise is exercise. Now, the different variables and the differences between men and women, yes, men have more upper body strength and more muscle mass, so they're going to respond more to hypertrophy in their upper body more than women will generally. Women generally have more muscle mass in their lower part of their body and their legs, less muscle mass in their torso and up, and hand strength and arm strength and all of that stuff. There are exceptions. But as far as, and then hormones come into play, that's a different variable. But you're still going to do bench press, you're still going to do squats, you're still going to do, cardio. It's still, all of those exercises are still the same. So unfortunately, there's been some marketing hype of saying, "Oh, these exercises are good for women." And it's like, no, not necessarily. If you have a well-rounded exercise routine, it will include all the major muscle groups and the small muscle groups, chest, back, legs, hams, quads, glutes, calves, biceps, triceps, shoulders, traps, boom, abs, there you go. It's going to be the same for men as for women. There's not this huge difference of like, you need to have a totally different program if you're a man versus a woman, or you need a totally different program if you're an endomorph, mesomorph, or ectomorph. So, yeah. But yeah, I wanted to come over, talk about that and some interesting information and some of the responses that I've gotten from that. And again, I get a few responses of people that obviously don't know what they're talking about. People that are, oh, that's your opinion. It's just another opinion in a sea of opinions. And it's like, no, this is actually stuff that's been tested and verified by multiple researchers and published on PubMed and, done by university, exercise and nutrition departments and people with PhDs. So yeah, it's, there, if it's tested and it's been repeated and measured and verified, and that's a fact, that's knowledge, that's not an opinion. Um, put your hand on the stove and it burns, that's a fact. It's an established fact. You can do that test and you know that if you put your hand on the hot stove, you're going to get burned. That's the way it is. It's an established fact. But the people that will say, oh, that's just your opinion, and usually the people that do this are the ones that have been operating off of the bro science or information that they think, is the end all be all of exercise and fitness knowledge, which is not the truth. And the greatest thing that I've found is by doing more studying and research, I can fine tune my workout routine to experience more muscle hypertrophy, more muscle growth, and doing pretty good. I'm doing a lean bulk, and so I guess I can show off here. But I'm 6'2". Oh, my calves are aching. So I'm 6'2", and you see I got some pretty good size, not bad. Got some decent, working on the arms a lot, working on the upper chest a lot, as far as getting that in there, and then I got a little bit of abs there. I still got some love handles, damn it. I've been working on legs a little bit, getting some more size in the legs. So that's been, been working out. Trying to get more well-rounded, and the information and the research that I've been looking at has been helping me fine-tune my workout program to that end or those ends. So yeah, it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time compared to, when I started lifting in the 80s. Yeah, I'm kind of dating myself there, ain't I? But, if you're doing the same thing over and over again and you're not seeing any results, guess what? Something needs to change. And it could be entirely that what you believed is true isn't true, and that's why you're at certain plateaus with your physical fitness. Now, eventually there is a point of diminishing returns. There's always going to be a point of diminishing returns. But a lot of that is based on nutrition. A lot of it is based on recovery, natural working out, not taking things like steroids. Of course, you can only go so far naturally. And then you have the people who do like anabolic steroids and so on and so forth, and they can go further and further. But even then, there's a cap of what you can do. But the higher that you go on that list, you're also incurring more risk. So for somebody like me who's concerned about building muscle but having and doing it in a healthy manner towards longevity, long life, obviously there's things that I'm not going to do. I'm definitely not going to do steroids. I'm definitely never have, never will. There's just too much, too many people dying, bodybuilders, fitness influencers that are obviously jacked on steroids. We're having heart attacks and strokes and complications and large hearts and just a ton of other problems because of steroid abuse. So yeah, it's tempting. Yes, it's tempting to want to get bigger. But yeah, the risks don't, the rewards are not enough to overlook those risks. And so I'm kind of a risk adverse type of guy. So I'm not going that route. So anyway, I thought I'd kind of throw that in there to talk about that. So yeah, discuss amongst yourselves, and do you know of any information? And it doesn't even have to be about health and fitness. Is there information that your parents taught you or that the school taught you that now you find out wasn't true? Put that into the comment section down below. I'd be interested in hearing some of the old truths that you thought were true really weren't true. And it's just kind of funny on the things that I like back in the day. Doctors used to recommend that pregnant women smoke to help relax them. Doctors recommended smoking tobacco. So there's a lot of crazy stuff that we've done in our history, but with advancements in technology and testing and so on and so forth, we're at a time now where we can get the most benefit than any other time in history when it comes to health and fitness and exercise, longevity, medical treatments, and so on and so forth. It's just amazing. If you think back to the time of Caesar in Rome, life expectancy was what, 30, 31, 32 years? And now we jump forward now, and it's not uncommon for people to live into their 70s, 80s, and 90s, which is really, really interesting. Okay, so that's going to be it. Discuss, comment, do all that good stuff. And if you've got any other questions, feel free to contact me. For those people that are interested in about me in Korea, how we kind of retired here, because Korea is not known as a retirement-friendly country like Thailand or Philippines or Bali or things like that. You can contact me, send me a PM. My wife is of Korean ancestry, and so that's how we were able to retire here in Korea. Even though she became an American citizen, she came back as a returning Korean, or a Korean with a person of Korean ancestry, so we were able to get the long-term visa. And of course, me being her spouse, I was able to get a long-term visa as well. Matter of fact, I just renewed it, and it's good for another 2 years. So, bonus. So if you have questions about that, on how we did that, you can contact me directly, send me a message on Messenger, or you can check out YouTube and go to The Varied Life, and you'll see me. And I got some videos on, obviously, health and fitness. And then I also have some other videos on, our life in Korea and kind of our journey and retiring overseas and so on and so forth. I have some other videos in there. It's kind of like a mishmash of stuff. Gives me something to do during my retirement years. So yeah, if you look up Steve Wilson on Facebook, Steve the Warrior Wilson, you can find me there and send me on Messenger or whatever, ask questions. And I've helped out a number of people who have come to Korea or wanted to come to Korea and actually used the information I gave them, and they came and retired in Korea to make their transition a lot easier. Openly share that information, make life easier for other people. So that's going to be it. So enjoy your weekend here. It is, what is it today? Today is Sunday here in Korea, Sunday night, like 11 o'clock at night. So it's Saturday morning, I think, in the United States, wherever you are, if you're in the United States. So anyway, that's it. So we'll see you on the next video. Peace.